Welcome to the Ultimate Bloons TD6 strategy series, where I'm going to be showing you strategies for every single tower from the Dart Monkey to the Beast Handler and every single path in between. This will show you how to diversify your setup and get better, along with seeing some stats, tips and tricks, and all of the strategies for every single one of the towers. And although that the series is geared more towards Chimps mode, this will also show you a lot of tips and tricks that apply to the standard game and will allow you to win with a new style. This episode is on the Tack zone, which is the bottom path and the last of the Tack shooters. Comes with Overdrive and Tack Sprayer 2. Very common and awesome towers, so let's get right into it. So the Tack Sprayer is a starter / early game tower. It's kind of similar to all the other tier 3s. The Overdrive is a early / mid game damage tower and also can be used in a late game spam strategy. And the Tack zone is a mid game carry and also can be used as late game damage. So there's a bunch of cool and different strategies that we can see, so let's get right into it. So starting off with this Tack Sprayer, here are the stats. This one's like pretty similar to all the other tier 3s. It's just that it kind of gets more use, that and the Blade Shooter gets more use over the hot shots, because I guess they're just a bit better stat wise. And then we have the Overdrive. The Overdrive is an awesome tower. It has a lot of damage, tag speed, projectiles, pretty much everything. Great for a lot of situations. And the Tack zone, like a lot of towers, it's just the Overdrive but ramped up, more projectiles, more pierce, damage, all that kind of stuff. Got a lot of reworks, but it still pretty much holds the same purpose, and with a bunch of buffs it can go absolutely crazy. So now when it comes to crosspath, very easy here. Unlike other towers that have kind of complicated crosspath systems, you always get the faster shooting. So that's going to be a 203, 204, and 205. And then one thing is that when it comes to tacks, this is pretty important. You always need to place them underneath. So here, for example, might look good because it kind of covers the most stuff and it's in the middle. But as we can see, when we just pull this against 98 and then compare it to a spot like right here, which was underneath the track, it's going to get actually more pops. And this test isn't like too comparative to what the result is. It's actually a lot better, but that's kind of just the case. And now when it comes to buffs, we want to get all of our buffs up. So you saw there some of the buffs came up, like some towers that you might want to use, but when we put just a few of these towers in, the pops go way up. It becomes way stronger, and that's because this guy is just extremely buffable. When it comes to the Alchemist, you might want to get a stim, or even a perma brew is another great option. It has a lot of great pairing with Alchemist, and you'll see stim especially when you're using it with Pat here. So here it isn't shown because I have perma brew, but if you get a Pat and a Tack zone right next to each other, you can stim both of them and they get a lot of benefit together. And then maps they're good with, it's just bends, loops, and overlaps, and somewhere where the Tack zone can be placed in a good spot and still be underneath the track, because the concentration is where kind of the head of the tack is, and that goes over the base footprint. So just kind of like that's how it works, but it's better in that spot. So now let's take a look at some of the examples. So the first one I'm going to be showing off is kind of using the Tack zone more in the mid game, and then I'm going to have some other examples with Tack zone kind of used more in the late game, and then a Overdrive spam strategy, which is really cool. It's a modular strategy, so you can use it on a lot of tricky maps where you need to like set your defense in 2 spots. So definitely want to check that out. That's going to be at the end of the video. So basically, when it comes to start, we're going to probably need a few things to start off with. I'm going to bring in Pat here. Pat and the Tack shooters have such a great synergy. Well, not the Tack shooters, kind of Overdrive, this bottom path in general, have a great synergy. So we're going to be bringing that. We're going to need something for camo, so I'm just going to get that sniper and that crossbow to take care of that. Some other towers to start off. And then I'm going to Alch buff this guy. So we're going to have Alch buff. It's going to be priority on the Overdrive, but when we get stim, it will also go over to Pat. So we can just roar and that Moab will go down, and then we can get a village. I'm just going to get a 230 here. The primary training does give a lot of benefit. It gives kind of pierce that the Overdrive needs. And then I'm going to get an embrittlement, which will increase the damage and also help deal with Bloons a little bit. There is one mistake here that I should have gone. I'm just going to pop up in text just so you can see it extra clear, and that's I recommend getting like a spike balls or another tower just to clean up because it is possible with the setup that Bloons might leak through a little bit, and you still have a lot of room to get Tack Zone before around 60-ish is when you want to get it. So I get that Tack Zone's gotten, and now we have Tack Zone kind of working through the mid game. You can use Pat's Roar and stuff when you need some extra damage. I'll be using that later, but now we can use this to kind of save up into another damage tower. I'm gonna be going for something a little bit more heavy, so that's going to be a Sky Shredder. You could really go into anything. It works very well with like another cheap damage tier 5, and then you can get like a bunch of support, and with Pat Fusty you will have quite a lot of damage, more than you might expect. So anyways, when just those tough rounds like those 78 waves come in, we can roar that and use that there, and now we can just kind of save up. I probably should have used my Pat ability a little bit earlier on 80 because I almost died there and almost came through on 81, but nevertheless we got the Sky Shredder, and now we're pretty much good. So when you can use this in the mid game, you can save up very well for another damage tower. That's kind of like what I'm doing here, so I'm just going to speed through this late game because I think it's more of a focus at this point on the Sky Shredder. I got Overclock and a bunch of other support and stuff like that, but the only thing to really note is that other than just doing a lot of damage, this, when you have Pat in the Tack Zone as like a mid game carry, it can also be used just to absolutely shred around 100. So you saw that right there. And then when it comes to just other combinations, you really can use the Tack Zone in the opposite way, where you have another tower and then you get a Tack Zone and maybe something like Pat to buff it or a Super Brittle to buff it, and that's going to be doing more damage in the late game. So you could have like a Crossbow Master and a Tack Zone buffed up a bit, or a Prince of Darkness and a Tack Zone buffed up, like you can see here. And these combinations you can do really well, especially if you give it like some more Pierce and that damage debuff like the Super Brittle. This can do a lot of damage. Like that was a lot of ZOMG. It took out at least a good chunk of it. So now let's take a look at, again, another approach. And if you saw it before, I was taking a look at the Permabrew. The Permabrew is a bit of an interesting tower, so let's look at it a little bit more here. I'm going to be doing pretty much the same start, but this time going from the stronger stimulant, we're going to be saving up for Permabrew. It recently got cheaper in an update, so that's pretty cool. You can use it a lot better. And again, I also would recommend getting like some little bit of cleanup. That's something that I forgot to do, so I just want to make sure that's like the message is clear on that. Just like a Spike Balls in the back usually works the best for cleanup, and you'll still be able to afford all of this stuff. So pretty much same setup. I have Pat. That's going to give a lot of benefit to the Tack Zone with the damage buff from the Rally Roar, but also the Slap actually works. It helps like group things together, so the Tack Zone can really get the most out of the damage. But we just save up. It's going to be very easy doing this on an intermediate map here, so not much struggles. And now I can get my Permabrew. So Permabrew is cheaper. That's great, only 51k, and this thing just makes the Tack Zone go crazy. So one thing that it also does that you'll note is that normally the Tack Zone cannot pop leads. So I, in these examples, have Embrittlement doing it. Like an Embrittlement and a Moab Glue will slow things down so it's consistent enough. But Tack Zone, with that, you don't really have to worry about anything because the Acidic Mixture Dip gives it permanent MIB status. So you can really take out DDTs with no issue here. And the Permabrew also will buff every single projectile. It has a fast attack speed, so it's not like the buff's always going to be there with the stimulant, but now it's permanent and it's crazy. I just get some extra Pierce, and then I can use my abilities if needed, and I win with like a ton of cash spare there. So now let's take a look at kind of using this in the mid game, because I did mention Overdrive can be used in the mid game very well. So if you just maybe out buff it and give it a village, that's pretty much all you would seem to have. You can do a good amount of damage, but it's kind of more so best at Moab. So if we have something that deals with the Pierce, like the insides, like this more Glaives, we can take out these fortified Moabs like it's nothing. Now let's take a look at Quad Chimps. This is an expert map on Chimps, and I'm just going to note this right now. This wasn't totally a black border. This strategy can very much well be used for a black border. It's a very common strategy for a Quad Chimps black border, but I haven't done it in a while, so the early game was a little bit rough. There were some deaths here and there. Probably want to play it a little bit safer, but it still works, and it shows kind of what you need to do. So that's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna point out one like small little mistake there later too, and that's the round 40. But anyways, for this modular setup, right now I don't have my tacks in play. You'll see them come in a little bit, actually right now in fact. But I want to just get 2 spike factories for, well, I guess 1 spike factory for each modular side. Get a dragon's breath. That's going to kind of deal with the balloons and what's ever leaking starting out. And then I'm going to start getting into my tacks. Now for round 40 on quad chimps, just because it's a harder map, 1 overdrive doesn't really seem to do a whole lot, if as I remembered before. So you probably want to look into like an alternate way to start, and then you could spend a little bit extra going into the late game. That gave me a bit of issues with the not being able to get camo on that wizard, as you'll see later. But other than that, you probably want to find a better start if you're doing quad. But for other maps, an overdrive for round 40 probably will work. Anyways, I'm going to be working on my modular setups again. So we're going to get discounts. I'm going to get spike balls, all that stuff, out of the spike balls, and we'll get overdrives in later. Typically with the modular setups, you really want to deal with like these balloons and kind of get your spike factories up, because you're going to be leaking all over without those. So the 2 dragon's breaths, they deal a lot of good work. I have my Gwendolyn up there. Actually, Gwendolyn is great for the overdrive spam. That's the hero recommendation when you're spamming overdrives, because she can buff the tacks from all over. So both setups are going to be getting buffs. And then I'm going to rush greed out some primary expertise a little bit. This will save up on a lot of money because I'm getting a lot of primary towers. It doesn't quite make for the cost of it, but it gives it some extra range, and for $500 on each side, that's a fair assessment, I guess, for getting extra range on all of your towers. Not really the biggest impact, but it can do a little bit if you're going to be getting a lot of primary towers. Round 63 with these dragon breaths and embrittlements are going to be totally fine, so nothing really to worry about there. But after I get my embrittlements, I kind of then can start working on the tacks. Things are probably going to be a little bit delayed because this is an expert map and you're kind of going crazy scrambling to get like all of your eggs sorted out. So it probably will be a lot more chill on easier maps than this, but it's still going pretty good. And right now I got my embrittlement up, so let's get these tacks in. We want to get usually 3 on each side, maybe 4 if you have some money to spare. But after that, we want to support these guys up. And you'll notice I am not getting alks, no alk buffs, because mathematically it is way more worth it to get another overdrive or another form of support tower than alk buff your tack shooter. So you don't want to do that. Not the smartest of moves. You'll just find, like, as you can see with the squad setup later on around 98, everything just goes so well with more support and more overdrives than if you had alk buffs, because they get expensive really quick. So we're gonna keep that in mind. No alk buffs on the overdrives. I do alk buff Gwen because alk buff is very good with Gwen, but instead I'm just going to be looking at getting the support up. So I get my spike mines, a bit of better cleanup, get a druid there, helps the spike mines a lot, kind of push the ceramics away so it doesn't eat up all the spikes too quickly. And I'm going to get Moab glues and then a bunch of Moab presses, try to keep the balloons pushed back, and then that will make things go a lot better. So as you can notice, this late game is so free. It's actually really easy, and they're not really getting anywhere. And then I'm just going to keep working on the support. So I go for Relentlesses. A good option if you have money might be like an Abyssal Warrior, because Pierce often can be an issue with this. So just keep that in mind. Unfortunately, I didn't really have any money for it, and also maybe a Sabo could probably be good, because like round 99 can be a bit tricky. I did mess up the ability timing on round 98 a little bit, so I didn't have my Firestorm up instantly for round 99, which would have been a huge help. But when it comes to the DDTs, the Embrit usually, well, Embrittlement and Relentless glue together usually can deal with it fairly well, but having that Firestorm up just in case is pretty important, I guess, when it comes to a bit of the harder maps here. Round 95 was just fine though. The spike mines kind of pushed everything away. Not really much to worry about there. 96, 97 free. I'm just going to be getting up a bunch of Moab presses now to kind of hold the ZOMGs back a bit. I end up getting 3 on the bottom, 2 on the top, and then I just need to make sure that I have enough money for a first strike on round 100. If it's an easier map, a lot of times just a whole bunch of overdrives can beat up round 100 on itself, but this map it's a lot shorter, so we're gonna have to get a first strike for that. And then round 97 is being taken out here. Then we'll see round 98. So the motor presses, they're doing a pretty good job, and all. They're just kind of really ZOMGs, I guess, are the issue, because it's more so for this strategy when like the ZOMGs get by and then they unleash all their Pierce like after the Tacks, and the spike mines won't be enough to really clean up. So as long as they're kind of opening up into Moabs before then, it seems to work out pretty well. Here my ability was a little bit late, kind of close there, and then round 100, one first strike is usually enough. You'll do a lot of single target damage, so that will go down, use the first strike, and that is a win. So crazy cool strategy, will help with a lot of hard maps. So that's pretty much it. Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you want to help out the channel, you can check out these new videos, like and subscribe for more content, support the channel by becoming a member, and joining the Discord to chat with the community. Bye!